Welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today we're going way back in time to uncover the surprisingly long history of marketing, presentation, and tactics. You shared some fascinating excerpts from AI-driven marketing, presentation, and tactics. A revolution with us, and let me tell you, this deep dive is really going to reveal something amazing. It seems like marketing isn't just a modern invention. It's been a fundamental part of human behavior since the very beginning.
You know, it's interesting. The source really seems to make a compelling argument that even those early cave paintings were a form of marketing.
Okay, I see what you're getting at here. So you're saying they weren't just art. They were a way of communicating with other tribes, maybe even attracting potential mates or intimidating rivals. Kind of like a prehistoric billboard, right?
Exactly. It highlights how, even back then, success wasn't just about doing the thing, but getting others to believe in you, to trust your skills. That takes communication strategy. And we see this throughout history, even in ancient Egypt. Look at those towering pyramids. Those weren't just tombs, right? They were massive statements of power and authority designed to inspire awe and ensure the pharaoh's legacy lived on.
Oh, so basically a pyramid scheme. I'm just kidding. But seriously, that's a great point. It's all about projecting a certain image, establishing your place in the world, right? And it's not just ancient civilizations. Think about medieval knights with their elaborate armor and coats of arms. Those were walking billboards too, showcasing their lineage, their bravery, their allegiance.
Precisely. It's a continuous thread through human history. And it's fascinating how the rise of humanism and individualism led to new forms of self-presentation. Think about the elaborate portraits commissioned by wealthy merchants, or the self-promotion tactics used by artists like Leonardo da Vinci.
So if we're talking about marketing ourselves, doesn't that get into some tricky territory? I mean, how much of it is genuine self-expression versus carefully crafted manipulation?
You've hit on a crucial point there, and this is where the source really dives into the ethical tightrope we walk. Because as communication gets more sophisticated, so does the potential for misuse. It's a theme that becomes even more relevant when we start talking about AI.
Okay, so let's fast forward to today. We've gone from cave paintings to pyramids to Instagram filters. It seems like the tools have changed, but the underlying principles are the same. We're all still trying to present the best version of ourselves to the world.
Absolutely. And with the rise of social media, we're constantly bombarded with carefully curated images and messages. It's like everyone is marketing themselves 24/7. But here's where it gets really interesting. The source argues that AI could take this to a whole new level, essentially creating a personalized presentation profile for each of us.
Hold on, a personalized presentation profile. You mean like AI could analyze my data and tell me the most effective way to communicate in different situations?
Exactly. Imagine an AI that knows your strengths and weaknesses, your communication style, even the personality of the person you're talking to. It could suggest the perfect words to use, the ideal tone of voice, even the most persuasive body language.
Okay, that's kind of amazing, but also a little creepy.
Yeah.
Isn't that just manipulating people? I mean, where's the line between helpful advice and, well, basically being a puppet master?
That's a valid concern, and one that the source addresses head-on. Because if AI becomes this good at crafting our messages, we have to ask ourselves, what happens to authenticity? Does it even matter if we're being genuine if the AI is pulling the strings?
Okay, so we're getting into some deep philosophical territory here.
We are, and that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. Because it's not just about the technology, it's about what it means to be human in a world where communication is increasingly mediated by AI.
Wow. We've gone from cave paintings to AI communication coaches in just a few minutes. It's incredible to think about how far we've come and where we might be headed. But before we get too deep into the AI rabbit hole, I think it's important to go back to those historical examples you highlighted, because those stories reveal a lot about the enduring human desire to connect, to persuade, to leave our mark on the world. And that's what makes this whole conversation so relevant to our listeners.
You know, you're absolutely right. The historical context is key to understanding the potential impact of AI. So let's delve back into those historical examples.
Perfect, because I'm dying to know more about those medieval knights and their walking billboards. Were they really that effective?
Well, let's just say they certainly made a statement, and that's what we'll explore next time.
Can't wait. See you then.
Welcome back to your deep dive into the evolution of marketing and presentation. Before we left off, we were discussing how even medieval knights were essentially walking billboards.
Yeah, it's a striking image, isn't it? But you're right. Those knights weren't just showing off. Their armor, their heraldry, all of it was deeply tied to the social codes of their time. But looking at this source, AI-driven marketing, It makes me wonder how much of what we consider individuality today is really just, echoing the dominant trends around us.
Hmm. That's a question the author grapples with as well, especially as we move into the era of AI-influenced communication. If an algorithm is telling me the optimal way to present myself, is that really me anymore?
It's almost like the AI is becoming the new dominant trend, right? But instead of a king or a social class setting the standard, it's an algorithm based on who knows what data.
Yeah, the source specifically calls out this potential shift in power dynamics. In the past, maybe only the very wealthy could commission those elaborate portraits we talked about, controlling their image. But with AI, that kind of image management could become accessible to anyone, which is both democratizing and potentially dangerous.
Okay, unpack that dangerous part for me a little. Because on the surface, it sounds great. Everyone gets to put their best foot forward. But where does it go wrong?
Well, think about those dating apps you mentioned using. Even now, they use algorithms to match people. But imagine an AI that crafts your entire profile, your messages, even coaches you during virtual dates based on what it thinks will be most successful. Where does the real you fit in then?
So you're saying it could create this weird feedback loop. We're trying to be ourselves, but the AI is nudging us towards whatever it's calculated will be most appealing, which might not be genuine at all, and then we're getting rewarded for that inauthentic behavior, so we keep doing it.
Precisely. And on a larger scale, imagine political campaigns or social movements using this tech. It could create incredibly persuasive messages, but if those messages are crafted to exploit our biases rather than appeal to reason, well, that's a recipe for manipulation on a grand scale.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely the dangerous side you were talking about. But shifting gears a bit, the source also talked about AI, potentially helping us communicate better across cultures. Didn't you say something about AI translating cultural nuances?
That's right, and it ties into something fascinating you highlighted in your notes about the Silk Road. Remember how merchants back then had to learn the customs and languages of all these different cultures to trade successfully? It was a massive communication challenge.
Right, it wasn't just about knowing the price of silk. It was about understanding the etiquette, the rituals, the unspoken rules that made a deal go smoothly. So are you saying AI could become like the ultimate Silk Road translator, bridging cultural gaps we haven't been able to before?
That's the hope. Imagine AI tools that don't just translate words, but also explain, in this culture, offering a gift with your left hand is considered rude. Or, when negotiating here, silence is seen as a sign of respect, not awkwardness. That kind of real-time cultural coaching could transform how we interact globally.
But wouldn't that take an insane amount of data? Like, how could AI possibly learn all the subtleties of every culture on Earth?
That's the challenge, and the source acknowledges it. It would require massive data sets, constant feedback, and probably some trial and error along the way. But considering how much data we're already generating through social media, global commerce, and even things like international travel, the raw material is there.
It's almost like we're building this global cultural database without even realizing it, and AI might be the key to unlocking its potential. But, this whole conversation keeps circling back to the same fundamental question. How much control are we willing to give up for the sake of better communication?
And that question, the balance of power between human intention and AI influence, is one we'll have to keep exploring as we move forward.
Welcome back to your deep dive. Before the break, we were talking about AI potentially being this global cultural translator. But as we keep discussing this idea of giving up control keeps coming up.
Well, and rightfully so. The source you shared, it really emphasizes that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. The choices we make now about how we develop and implement AI will have huge ripple effects.
Yeah. Thinking back to those historical examples, the pyramids, the knights, even the merchants on the Silk Road, they were all using communication strategically to get what they wanted. But it was their own strategy, you know what I mean, based on their understanding of the world. With AI, it feels like we're kind of outsourcing the strategy.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
In the past, persuasion was like an art, a craft, something you honed through experience and observation. But AI has the potential to turn it into a science, a set of algorithms that you can just optimize.
And that's where it gets a little scary. If we're constantly being nudged and optimized by AI, are we losing something like essential about how we think, our ability to think for ourselves and make our own decisions?
The source brings up that exact concern. It talks about the potential for AI to create these filter bubbles on steroids where we're only exposed to information that confirms our biases. It's all delivered in the most persuasive way possible. It could create echo chambers and polarization unlike anything we've ever seen.
So it's not just about manipulating individuals, it's about manipulating society as a whole
Yeah.
in ways we might not even realize. It's both amazing and terrifying.
It is. But the key here is awareness. By understanding how these technologies work, by having these conversations about the ethics of it all, we can start to navigate this new world.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do right in this deep dive. Explore the potential and the pitfalls, the excitement and the anxieties that come with this whole AI thing.
And the best part is we're doing it together. You brought these sources to us, and we're going through them with your interests in mind. It's like a team effort.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one last thought. The next time you're on social media, watching an ad, or even just talking to a friend, take a second to think, is AI influencing this interaction? And if so, how?
Because the more aware we are of how AI is shaping our communication, the more power we have to make our own choices about how we use it.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from cave paintings to AI-powered diplomacy. It's been quite a journey. But the conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those conversations flowing. Thanks for joining us.
This is DigitView.